The whole supply chain is a complex web of constantly changing technologies and relationships. From beef producers who are often in very remote areas to processors and retailers in towns and cities, it is challenging to maintain the ideal levels of communication that benefit all parts of the chain with the aim of producing the best possible beef product. The Bullseye project is funded by the West Australian Government's Grower Group Research and Development Program, administered through the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development's Agricultural Sciences Research and Development Fund. It is hosted by the Gascoyne Catchments Group in partnership with the recognised biosecurity groups and producer groups of the Southern Rangelands. The value chain tour was organised to enable pastoral beef producers to gain an appreciation of the complete supply chain from their own beef production system right through to a high-quality retail outlet. Beef producers travelled from many parts of the state to Dandaragan to rendezvous with a tour bus that would take them to a series of stops, including a feedlot, breeding operation, processor, meat research unit, and boutique meat retailer. This film is part 3 of 3 short films that captures the important information gleaned during the tour. This part describes how genetic theory can be put into practice to break new ground for producing high eating quality beef. The touring party journeyed from a high-end retail butcher at Myaree to a genetics research centre at the 2,000-hectare Melaleuca farm between North Dandalup and Waroona. Here, Professor Roger Dawkins and his son John operate a beef enterprise where they have been crossing the Akaushi or Red Wagyu breed with Simmentals. Roger's research career in human genetics enabled him to transfer that expertise into the task of breeding a fast-growing, high-marbling, high-eating quality animal for the Australian context. Consultant Alan Peggs linked Bullseye with the Dawkins, who invited the Bullseye tour to visit their operation. Bullseye saw this as an opportunity to see a commercial operation where the latest developments in applied genetics are being successfully employed to achieve a targeted beef product. The farm hosts the Centre for Innovation in Agriculture, which is affiliated with Murdoch University. Here, Roger and research geneticist Dr. Sally Lloyd explained the theory and practice of identifying the genes that carry the marbling character and the genes for high melting point monosaturated fat that has superior benefits for human health. This analysis can be done simply using a small tissue sample from the tail. On board the bus again, we toured the farm where we could see both Akaushi and Black Wagyu cattle and their crosses grazing the dry November pastures.
Quite interested to see the part on the red Wagyu, and had a little bit to do around the blacks, and they were something new for us today, and quite interesting addition to breeds the cattle, and to see another type of cattle, and supplying an entirely different market. So, yeah, that was quite good value.
Genetics with cattle, we've spent a lot of money on stud bulls, so I think we're pretty right there. Listening to the Wagyu people, definitely up on genetics way more than what we are, but I don't think we need to be anywhere near what they are putting into their cattle. It's a completely different scenario. But for what they're doing it. They're obviously doing it very well, yeah.
At the C.Y. O'Connor pub in the southern Perth suburb of Piara Waters, the Dawkins hosted the group with drinks and a 5-star dinner including steaks from F1 Simmental Akaushi cross animals that had been grain finished. People reported that the steaks were tasty and juicy, reflecting the high marbling scores. Over dinner, Sally further explained the genetic theory, and Roger discussed how he would like to work with the Bullseye project to identify pastoralists wishing to trial the Akaushi genetics in a pastoral context. Several pastoralists are now committed to introducing the Akaushi genetics to their herds on a trial basis. The Dawkins operation has links with the Heart Brand beef brand in the USA, which is built on the quality of the beef from the Akaushi breed. In November 2019, the Bullseye project brought researcher Chris Mattern to WA to explain how, at Alice Springs, best practice grazing management has enabled 30-month-old steers of mixed breeds weighing 575 kilograms to be reliably finished to MSA grade fat cover. Fundamental to achieving these results was rigorous attention to adjusting stocking rates to remain safely within seasonal forage supply. This research augurs well for the future of producing high eating quality, grass-fed beef on well-managed pastures of WA's central and southern rangelands.
Yep. So C.Y. O'Connor is my great-great-grandfather, my grandmother's grandfather. We're very proud of him, and my father is a scientist, professor in immunology, medical research and genetics. And when he brought the lab from town out to the farm here, he named the village after C.Y. O'Connor because we were proud of the innovation that he showed in his time and aimed to replicate it both in the science and then subsequently in the cattle and cattle genetics and paddock to plate program through the pubs. So we specifically in cattle, shorthorn initially, then Simmental, and more recently into the Wagyu and Red Wagyu genetics, and we bring our beef through from paddock to plate. So we've got what we call the paddock to plate program, where we bring our own beef from our properties in North Dandalup, Nambeelup, Waroona, through to the venues, including this one in C.Y. O'Connor Village. The genetics have been a really exciting and interesting part of the cattle, and Dad's progressively moved from human medical research into agricultural and beef genetics research to the point that that's now the primary focus. We've had to relocate the lab and research village from here on the original property in Piara Waters, Canning Vale, down to the new farm in North Dandalup, where we've established the Centre for Innovation in Agriculture and looking at primarily beef quality, genetics involved in beef quality and fat deposition, marbling. I have a real passion for improving the quality of beef, not only in the long-fed Wagyu, but more so actually in standard beef production, which is where we think the Akaushi or the Red Wagyu have a real place. The discovery in the laboratory has been that there's a key region of the genome, which is relative to the whole quite a small part of the genome, which is really important in all of the meat quality characteristics of beef. So that is, not just about the level of marbling, but the deposition of fat and the type of fat and the way the desaturation of the fat occurs. And we are looking at introducing genetics into in our case, European Simmental beef, but potentially in all types of beef, to lift that eating quality and produce a higher value product without significant increase in expense. We literally go from genetics through to the consumer on the plate. We've got the introduction of the Japanese genetics through to the production or the dropping of calves, the feeding, finishing, both grain and in the future grass, through to the beef, into the pubs and to the consumer. And part of what we do at the consumer end is to have blind tastings with some customers, generally small groups of 10 to 15, measure the melting temperature of fat, which is a direct indication of the healthiness of the fat. So one of the big aims is to reduce the melting temperature of the fat in our beef, which is essentially increasing the oleic acid percentage or making it more like olive oil and less like butter.
I feel that it's been a fantastic initiative because with what we do, we produce a product and then there's a little bit of a stumbling block as to where to go from there. I mean, we obviously want to sell the best product we possibly can, and speaking to producers and butchers and breeders and all these other people gives you a perfect insight to where we should be aiming our product. We are registered for MSA, and it was really fantastic to find out where that fits with butchers. We want to produce the best product we possibly can, and to have some sight as to where to go with that next is fantastic. We've just learnt so much and gained so much out of this. It's been brilliant. I believe that we can use MSA as a tool with our meat, because we have very positive feedback from people that have bought our meat previously or bought our product. I think that MSA would then give us a guide as to know where to go next, whether we need more marbling or whether we need what practices we can do. Obviously, it's not going to be a total gauge because it's also depends on the processes and other things as well. But if we can do things with genetics and stock handling, that's going to improve that meat quality. That's what we're aiming for. Yeah, the best product we can possibly produce. Happy beef, happy, a nice product, definitely. It is just fantastic that the government has actually allowed us this opportunity to go on this learning curve and to see what's out there. I think that everyone that's been on this tour has got so much out of it. Our heads are spinning really and excited about where we can go next. Hopefully there's going to be a lot of other opportunities for learning like this. I think we're all really inspired and we love our cows and we want to produce a product that's really good, and this has sort of given us probably the network and the contacts and areas to know where our next step is.